Greetings and salutations, and thank you for clicking on the video. Today we're going to take a look at working with Cron. I'm going to show you how to schedule tasks in Cron and make your system do things automatically. This video is being done because in my last video, when I was talking about Linux memory management, I was using some example commands, and I said, hey, you could put this in a Crontab and make the machine do it automatically at certain intervals. And of course, that generated comments where people said, could you please do a video and show us how to use Cron? And so I'm going to do that today. Before we get into it, I have to warn you that Cron is a deep system application, and so therefore we're going to get way under the hood. We're going to tinker around. We're going to edit some files. We're going to create a script here. We're going to do all kinds of groovy stuff in the terminal. And if you are not a person who likes to play around in the terminal, or if you're relatively new to Linux and you're seeing this and you go, I don't think I could do that. At the end of the video, I'm going to show you a GUI application that does this for you, that will actually set a lot of this stuff up for you. But watch what I do manually first, simply because you will understand what the GUI is doing, okay? Okay, so what is Cron? Cron is a program that runs pretty close to the kernel that basically keeps an eye on the clock and keeps an eye on all the things that it's been asked to do, and it runs them in the background. And whether you have set anything up on your system to run in Cron or not, it's working every day. So what we want to do is I'm going to show you some of the things that it's doing. And we're going to switch to the etc directory or etc directory. This is where a lot of system configuration files are kept. And I am going to do ls. And I'm going to look for anything with Cron in it, and I'm going to put a star at the end, which means if there's any more text after that, ignore it. Just if it says Cron, show it to me. And as you can see, we get a lot of output here, and so there's a lot of stuff that's going on. And all of these files that you see are scripts or commands that Cron is running. Now, this particular part of the Cron system is for the system itself or for programs that you install. We will set up our own Crontab or Cron table. A Crontab is a file that contains commands that we give to the system to do. All right. This is a bunch of scripts that Cron is just looking for by default. So there's only one in here that you would ever have to really deal with. And I'm going to show you because you can edit this one and you can make it do, not daily, I want weekly. Alright, so I'm going to switch to this directory. You'll notice here this one kind of stands out, this Google Chrome up here. This one right there. That's Google Chrome making sure that its repositories are hooked up. That's all that is, and it does it once a day. So just in case you were curious what Google Chrome was doing on your system, that's what it's doing. Okay, to look at it, here we go, sudo nano, and then I'm going to look at fstrim. Did I type that right? Yep. And as you can see, we have a script file here. We're going to make one of these a little bit later on. And there's not much here. It's like one or two little commands, and the only reason that you would ever want to look at it is if you had an SSD in your system that was not an Intel or a Samsung or an OCZ. If you don't have those three brands, I know here it just says Intel and Samsung, but I looked this up elsewhere, then the trim command was not going to work on a weekly basis. In other words, it won't do wear leveling on your drive because the reason is that some drives, if you have a lot of input and output going, a lot of reads and writes happening, and you run the fstrim command at the same time, it might lose data. For a desktop user, that really does not apply because they're talking about like server grade stuff where it's like running all the time. I don't think you need to worry about that. You can go ahead and set this up to trim your SSD and not worry too much about losing any data, but there it is. And this is a feature that came along with Ubuntu 14.04. Okay. By the way, we're using Linux Mint 17.3 to make this video. It's based on Ubuntu. A lot of what I'm going to show you is totally general and works on every distribution of Linux there is, since Cron is common to all distributions. Okay, so that is what the system is doing. You see one here that's mandb. That just goes through and makes sure it updates all the manual files and makes sure that database is straight. Just a lot of background tasks that you yourself probably would never even know that we're running. So if we want to generate our own Crontab, we want to put our own command in there, how would we do it? Well, the command that we're going to use is called Crontab. So before we execute the command, we got to figure out what we're going to do. If we're going to execute a command that you can run as a user, you don't need administrative privileges, then you want to set up the Crontab for your account only. If you have to run commands within, if you're going to run a command that has to have root privileges, then you're going to have to run it in the root user's account. And the way we separate those is if I issue this command without sudo, then it's just going to set it up for my account only. So anything I put in there cannot have administrator privileges, or it's not going to work. Okay, so let's open up Crontab. And in my case, it jumps right to Nano and it opens up the Crontab file that it generates. If you've never run this before, if you've never run this command, the first thing it's going to do is ask you to choose an editor. Be careful here. Make sure that you choose Nano. If you choose Ed or Vim, you may find yourself in a very unfamiliar editor that is not all that intuitive or user-friendly. Nano is so easy that anybody can use it, which is the reason why, it's here. And so what we want to do is scroll down here and take a look at the bottom of this file, because that's where all the action is. All that text up top is just telling us some information about how this works. And they give us a nice example here. So if you would uncomment this file, it would actually run, and it would back up your home directory to the var backups home.tar there. It would actually put it in there. Well, what's all this garbage up front? What is this? This is our clock here for our command. This is what this is right there. That's our clock. And it tells the system how often to run it and exactly when to run it. Okay? So I'm going to jump over here because I have another terminal open and I have the documentation for Cron open to the table that shows us exactly what all this does. And if you want to look at this, the command would be man, the number 5, and then Crontab. So it would be man space 5 space Crontab, and it would show you this exact page. And there's a lot of information in here because there are a lot of options for Cron. But this is what we want to talk about. So these numbers that are in the front here, right here, these numbers up front, they represent the clock, and each one is a field. So the first field is here. So let's see what it goes in that field. Well, that tells us the minute. So we can schedule jobs down to the minute if we want to, and so therefore, you put in 1 through 59, and that's the minute of the hour, okay? And then the hour itself, it's in military time. So 0 would be midnight, and 23 would be 11 o'clock. And then the day of the month, you can schedule this for a particular day in the month. If you want to do something on the 3rd, for instance, you would put a 3 in there. And the month itself, you can actually make cron jobs that run once a year at a particular month. So there you go. If you put in 10, it would only run in October. And then the last one, which is the one that most of us will be interested in, is the day of the week. And Sunday is 0. Okay, so it starts Sunday being 0. So if you wanted to run something on Wednesday, you would put a 3 in there. So let's go back over here and actually generate a Crontab, something that we need the system to do. All right. And this is not going to be a direct example, guys. I'm going to just kind of make something up as I roll along. So don't, write this down and think that this is a command that you could actually use. All right, so the first thing that we would need to do would be tell it when we want it to run, right? And the developers here have given us this nice little guide to make sure we know what we're typing in each field. Excuse me. And so the first thing, let's just do it at the top of the hour. And then we're going to tell it that we're going to do it at 11 o'clock. And we don't really care what day of the month or what month it is. So we'll just put a star in there, which tells the system we don't care. You can do this any day. All right. And the day of the week, though, we want to go ahead and set that. So we're going to do this Wednesdays at 11 o'clock in the evening. That's what we're doing here. So for that, we would put in 3. All right. So now we've set our time. Now we need to put in our command. Now, it has to be a command that we can run as a user. We're not running this as root. So let's pick something we could do. Like, okay, let's use BleachBit. So you could have the system once a week run through and run BleachBit and like clear the cache in your browsers and your trash can and all that stuff. Whatever you've set BleachBit up to do. Now, I'm not 100% sure if that's the correct syntax to do that. I haven't run it from the terminal in a while, but I think that the option is C to get it to do that. So if you're actually going to try and set this up, gang, go look at the man page for BleachBit and figure out exactly what the right syntax is. So at this point, we have set up a command to run Wednesday night at 11 o'clock, and now it's going to run BleachBit, and it's going to clear out all of the stuff in our caches and browsers and whatever we've told it to do. All right, and this is all good and fine, but there is one thing that you need to keep in mind. Commands that you run on a terminal generate output. They tell you what you're doing. I'm not really sure if this one does, but it just may. You're going to have to figure out where to put that output. By default, Cron takes all of the output that you would see on a terminal and it throws it into an email, but not an email like you're thinking of, like your Gmail account or Yahoo or whatever. It is a system email, and it will throw it in a directory called spool, which is in the var directory. And most of us these days don't even know how. I don't even know how to look at system email on a Linux system, so we really don't want that. Now, it's going to throw it in there, and it's not going to bother anything, but probably you just might find that directory starts filling up with stuff. So let's do something with that output. Let's send it somewhere. And in our case, let's say that we really don't care what it's doing. I'm going to use the bracket there to tell it I want it to put it in a file. And then I'm going to give it a non-existent file. So I'm going to use dev, and then I'm going to call the file null. Okay, this basically means that the file does not exist. So it's just sending the output to nowhere, and it'll just disappear. Just like null, dev null is a black hole, and it just sucks up data, and it just goes poof. Okay, so yeah, you would-be hackers out there are trying to figure out ways to use that. I can already tell. Okay, but in this way, when I run this, it's going to end up in nothing. Okay, so if I would save this right now, I would have set up this command to run BleachBit and to clear that out. But I'm not going to do it because that's something I like to do by hand, and I like to watch the output myself. So, but if you want to do it, you're more than welcome to give it a shot. So let's go ahead and just exit out a nano right there, and I'm not going to write the file. And let's move on to talking about working with cron tabs and scripts. This is important because you notice that we put one command in there, all right? But some things you might want to do with your system, you may want to have more than one command run at a time. And yeah, you could set up a bunch of cron jobs to do that, and it would work. But how about writing a script to do a bunch of tasks, and then the machine can do it in the background, and you don't even know what's going on. So you could take our example BleachBit command, you could throw it in there, and then you could set your backup program going. You could use grsync, and you could set that up to back up your stuff. You could do all kinds of stuff here. And the one that I'm going to show you by example is setting up the system to update automatically in the background. So you never have to worry about it. You can do it yourself. I mean, you don't even have to look at it. It just does it. You know what I mean? You don't have to do it yourself is what I meant to say. Now, I personally will not set this up to actually do this. And the reason why is because I like to be interactive with the updates, and I like to see what's going on. But if you are setting up a machine, for instance, that's going to be nothing but a media server or an email server or something like that, you can gain control over automatic updates by doing it this way. And then that machine will update itself, take care of itself in a corner, and you never have to worry about it. Or if you're somebody who just says, okay, I don't want to really have to worry about updates, you can have the machine do it, on a daily basis, for instance, and then it just does it, and nobody ever knows. Or if you have a machine that you've set up for somebody else, that's another good reason. Let's say that you set your mom up on Linux and she's not hip on updates. Well, okay, let's say you got Linux Mint. You can take the update manager off of the desktop so she can't click on it and mess it up. And then the machine will automatically update itself in the background. So there's another reason to do this. Okay, so let's get into writing the script. Now, I've already written the script. I've already tested the script. I've already run the script. And I did that just to make the video go a little bit faster. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my home directory here. And don't know what I just did there, but never mind. Let's do that one more time. CD. See, I'm not the world's greatest typist while I talk, so better if I do things in advance. Now, I already put the file in here, and I named the file update.sh. All right? So let's open it and take a look at it. So the first thing that we would need to do is open up Nano. And I'm going to open it up with the file. And open it up as yourself. You don't need sudo here. Nano and update.sh. Okay. So it should go and open up that file for us. And it did. Here's my lovely script file that I wrote. And I'm going to go through and explain what everything is here. If you are familiar with the concept of batch files in Windows, maybe you've written batch files in the past for DOS and Windows, this is kind of sort of the same thing, but there's a lot more power in a bash script. A bash script can be anything from a short list of commands like we have here to, it could also be, I mean, we can write programs here. You can write full-on programs, and you can use the bash language to pretty much write a program. So I'm not the world's greatest script person, but if this is something that interests you, the sky's the limit, man. You can do all kinds of stuff. So the first thing that we want to do in our script, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here while we talk about it. Okay, the first line that you absolutely have to put in a script is this, and this is called the crash bang, and it tells the system what shell to use. If you are writing a script file that is going to run on numerous Linux systems, and you may or may not know for sure that bash is installed, you can use the sh shell, which is just the standard shell that is pretty much shipped with everything. It's the oldest one. Now, you don't have as many options in the sh shell as you do in bash. Bash is much more enhanced. I would say for any, like if you had a bunch of Debian Ubuntu based machines, that bash would be the way to go, okay, because they're all going to use the same thing. Alright, so what we got here is a list of commands. Alright, so let's look at our first command, and it's apt-get update. And that one should be familiar to anybody who's run Linux. This is how you get the system to go out and look at all the repositories and make sure that everything is up to date, and to check and see if there's any new upgraded packages. So that's the first thing we ran. And then I'm actually creating a file. I have one bracket here, which means that if this file already exists, it's going to completely blow it out and create another one. And the file that I'm creating is, you know, real creative title here, update log in my home directory. The next command should be pretty familiar too. We're using apt-get dist upgrade, and this will actually go out and install the updates. And I'm using the Y option here, okay, which basically says if you've run this command, you know that the system will ask you, it will say, do you really want me to do this? And you would have to hit enter to choose yes or whatever the deal is. Well, what this does is it does it for us, so we don't have to worry, because if this is running in the background and nobody sees it, nobody's there to answer its question. So we're going to give it an answer there. Now, the way this works is that if you choose the option to go ahead and answer yes to the question there, the system will go on and attempt to run all the updates. But if it runs into an update that asks another question, maybe you run into one of those deals where it's a dependency that it can't quite figure out, or it's asking you whether to change a configuration file or something like that, then it's going to just quit. It's not going to, because it's going to say, wait a minute, I'm running in an automated state and nobody's looking at this. I can't really generate an answer, and maybe I shouldn't do this, so it doesn't. There's actually another option that you can put on that command, and that is force yes. I do not recommend doing that, because basically what you're saying there is that the update command has the right to trash your system, and you probably don't want to do that. So we're taking the output of this file, of this command, and we're going to put it into that same file that we generated up here, but I'm using 2 brackets there, and those 2 brackets mean that I want to append to what's already in this file. In other words, don't recreate it, don't blank it out, just add the text down to the bottom there, okay? So that is self-explanatory. This on the end is the command that strings commands together. And 2 ampersands will string a command together in such a way that if this command doesn't run, the next command after it won't run either. And we're going to use that to our advantage. So the way I've set this up is that I have the command to do the distribution upgrade, which will install all the new packages. And then if it runs into a problem, how am I going to know that? If it just output, yeah, I could go through and look through all the output in the file, but hey, you know, why should I have to do that? So I'm generating, I have a command here that's generating just a little line that says all done. And if all done appears at the bottom of my file, I know for sure that everything ran successfully and there was no problem. So I'm pending that to the update log file that I created. And there's my script, and it does work. So once you generate a script to do whatever commands you want it to put in there, you will save your script. And we don't have to save it because it's already here. So I'm just going to exit out of that. The next thing that you will need to do is, just because you put them all in there doesn't mean that it will execute. You have to set the execution. You have to set it to execute. And the way you do that from a terminal is just use this quick command, change mod, and then give it the file. So in our case, we're actually, give it the, no, I don't give it the file first. I give it the option first. I almost made a mistake. So what do I want change mod to do? I want it to add, hold on. I want it to add the executable tag there, or flag, or permission to the file, so it will run as a file, okay? And so now we'll just give it the file name. Since it's already in our home directory, we don't have to give it an absolute path and tell it where it is. So we have update sh. And it did it. It's done. And, well, how do I verify that? Okay, well, let's make sure that it actually put it in there. So ls, and we want to show everything. And now we are going to give it the file to look for, which is update.sh. And it found it, so we know it's there, but it didn't show us the information we wanted. So I guess maybe here what we need to do is to use this one. Give me the long version, please. So show me all of the information about the file that is on hand, and then show me everything about it. Okay, now we have our permissions over here, and as you can see, this file is now executable by me. So I can test it. So let's see if it works. Let's go ahead and run the file. To run the file, by the way, you can also change the permissions from the file manager graphically. Right-click, choose permissions, add this permission. You're good to go, okay? Not going to show you how to do that because that's all point and click and it's pretty easy. But right now I want to run this command, and because, now remember, running the update command, these are root commands that have to be run with administrative privileges. So I'm going to preface this with sudo, and then I'm going to tell the system where the file is that I want to run. It may not, it probably won't be like a normal command that you can just type in. Usually the path that the machine uses to look for executable files doesn't include your own directory. That's for safety's sake, and that way nobody can stick something that is like executable code in there that you could click on by accident and then trash your system. So you have to tell it exactly where it is here. So let's update .sh, and we're going to run this command. Ask for my password. Give it the password. There we go. It's running. It's actually doing it in the background. Now remember, we're not seeing any output on the screen here because what in our script, we have actually set the output up to go somewhere else. So while this is running, we're not going to actually see anything come up on the screen. It's not going to say anything. But we know it's running because we haven't gotten returned to a prompt yet. And as we all know, sometimes running the update command like this can take a little bit of time. So we can go to another terminal while that's running. We can check into it. So let's go over here so we can continue on with what we want to do. Let me see if it's quit. Nope, it's still running. We'll let that run and take care of itself. Alright, so if we want to add, we're going to assume that our update script is working. So we're going to go ahead and add this to our root user's cron tab. I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay? So what we want to do is, this time we're going to do sudo crontab and E. The E option there. Oh, it would help if I put an O in there, wouldn't it? Okay. And it's going to ask for my password. We're doing this as the root user. And once again, we get this very familiar thing. Let's just see if our command finished. Yes, it did. We're done. We're back to a prompt. Now, how are we going to know if this thing's done? Well, let's do this. I'm going to, let's see. I want to cat update log. Alright, and I'm going to put it into I'm going to pipe it into the more command. Alright, so that we can see it one page at a time, because we probably generated a lot of text here. And yes, that's familiar. See, it went out and got the mirrors, so we can page down here. And we get down to the bottom, we see that it completed successfully with all done. So we know that happened. And we can tell when it did it by looking at the date on the file. So yes, that all works. That's wonderful. Okay, back to what we were working on, please. Go back to our other terminal that's open. Now we want to actually put that command into practice. We're actually going to do that. So come down here like so. Alright. And once again, we're going to set a time. When do we want the system to update? What we would do, we want to do this on a daily basis. So we're going to give it a time, and we'll do it at the top of the hour once again. And this time, what time would be a good time to update the system? I don't know. Let's pick 12 noon. It'll just do it in the background. Every day at 12, it's going to go out and check that. So at exactly 12 noon, it's going to go do that. Now, I want this to do this daily. So I don't want to tell it what day of the month it is. All right? And I don't want to tell it to do just any month will do. And now any day will do. All right? So this is going to do this every day. To execute our command as root, we need to give it the exact path. Remember, I told you that this is not a standard system command, so we can't just throw the command in there. We have to tell the system where it is. So in this case, we're just going to do this. Home Joe update.sh, which is our script, and it's done. We do not have to redirect the output here because we have that done in our script. There's no output that comes from the script. We've already told it where to put it and to generate the file. It's done. That makes setting up these cron jobs extraordinarily easy to do it that way. Okay? So if I would save this, this would actually start updating the system automatically at noon, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to exit out because now I'm going to show you how to use the GUI application that does exactly the same thing. So go ahead, no, I don't want to change that. And okay, the application that we would need to get to do this is actually available in the repositories, and it's part of the GNOME desktop suite. So therefore, it's accessible to anybody. Now, if you're running KDE, KDE has an application that does this, and I think it's called Cron, but you need to check that out, okay? I'm not real familiar with the KDE desktop. I mean, you could run the application I'm going to show you there too. It would work just fine. So to get our application, you would go into your software manager, software center, or you could just run this command, sudo install gnome schedule, and should tell me that it's already installed, but I'll run the command anyway. Oh, see, once again, it always helps to do it right now, doesn't it? There you go. Excuse me. Sudo apt install gnome schedule. Got it. And it's going out and looking at it, and it sees, well, you know, it's already installed, man. So let's go look at the application. You can find it in the menu. All right? Or I can just run it from a terminal. Now, this is important here, to run this from a terminal. Why? If you just run it from the menu, it runs as you. And so therefore, any command that you set up in this is going to run from your account. If you want to run administrative tasks, you'll have to run that command, actually run the program as the administrator. So let's do that right now. And here's our program running. And I do apologize for coughing in your ear, gang. Still getting over the cold. So if we wanted to add something to the system, how would we do it? Well, once again, we would create new. And it's going to ask us about when we want to do it. Do we want to do it recurring? Do we want to do it once? I guess this one is a... This is if you have templates made up already, but in other words, you could schedule tasks all at the same time and just do a bunch there. We're not going to get that deep into this. Let's just say we want to set up a recurring task. So what we'd need to do here is we would let's do something different, because we could put our script file in there. We could do that, but let's just set something up different. So let's give it another name here. And we're going to call our command defrag. Now, running defrag programs in Linux is not necessary. For most users, you just don't need to worry about it. However, if you're one of those people that deals with a lot of big video files, or you have drives with a lot of data on it, they're close to full, you might want to have the system run out and do a defrag every now and again. So we're going to tell it to do that. And the command for that we put in command here is going to be... Let me zoom in on this a little bit, make it easy for everybody to see. So we're going to use the E4 defrag command. E4 defrag. And then you have to tell it what directory. Now we're doing this with root privileges, recall, so we don't have to prefix it with sudo or anything. And there's the root directory. Now remember, commands put out. We don't want it to show up in the mail spool, which we never look at, so we're going to have to figure out what to do with it. And that's where this comes in right here. I want to suppress output. Or I could have it open up a terminal. But for this kind of thing, we don't really need to see what it's doing. Especially with E4 defrag. Boy, make sure that you have some place for that output to go, because this thing generates a lot of output. If you've ever run it, it's like, wow. It like lists every file on the system as it goes through and does this. So I'll tell you what, instead of defragging the root directory, let's defrag the home directory only. That makes more sense. Okay, so we want to suppress the output, which means we won't see anything. And here's where it's going to tell us how to do it. We'll set it up to run every week. So it's going to run on a weekly basis. All right? And that would be fine. But we can check and see what it's actually doing here. It's going to run at midnight. And it's going to run on Monday. We can go through and do that. I guess let's just set it to do weekly. We can check and see what it does. So we want it to run every week, and we'll see exactly when that runs. So I'm going to go ahead and add this. All right. And it says that by default it's going to run Monday at midnight. If that's okay with you, go ahead and add it. And they're going to be running your home directory, but that doesn't count here. Makes no difference. Okay, so we have now created our cron job. All right, and we'll go ahead and close the application. We see it's right there. We can go back and edit this later, or we can delete it. But I'm going to show you how to delete manually, okay? So we're done. So how do we check that? Well, what we want to do is list our cron tab. So we're going to do sudo cron tab, and we're going to do an L there, which will just show us the root user's cron tab. Okay, there it is. And we see how that set it up. And it's exactly the sort of thing that we put together. Now, this program actually adds some commands at the end, some sort of housekeeping things that you ordinarily wouldn't put in. And you'll notice it also basically overwrites the crontab file completely. So now we don't have any of the comment information in there. Move that to the top of the screen. You notice that we don't have all that comment information that we had when we generated it manually. But it's still exactly the same file, and it does exactly the same thing. So, okay, so you've generated a bunch of commands in Crontab and it doesn't work, or you want to stop using it. You can go in and edit it to take those commands out, or you can just start from scratch. If you want to start from scratch, I'm going to show you that right now. And this will be the last thing we show before we wrap up the video. And that is, we are going to do sudo crontab R. And this will actually remove that crontab that we created. And it's gone. There is no crontab. So now, if I run crontab list, it tells me there's no crontab. And that's it. We're done. That's how you use cron, gang. You can go get the GNOME schedule application, or you can be bold and you can do it from a terminal yourself. Yeah, it's a little bit weird, but once you get the hang of how it works, I'm sure that you'll be able to come up with lots of uses for cron, and you can make it do all kinds of stuff. And if you'd like to learn more about Linux, check out the links in the description below the video here. Check out Easy Linux on the web. That's going to tell you how I can help you get started with Linux with a nice, fresh, clean install. Check out Easy Linux on Facebook. We've got a lot of cool things that happen there. And also check out freedompenguin.com for articles about Linux from lots of contributors. That includes me. I'm one of the contributors, but lots of other folks do that as well. And I think maybe this video might end up on Freedom Penguin, because this is a cool one. And thank you to the folks who asked me to do this, because to tell you the truth, I would have thought that this would have been a bit more advanced than the people who usually watch my channel. They wouldn't be able to, maybe kind of pushing a little far ahead, but had a lot of interest in it, so we went ahead and did it. So thank you for watching the video. And also in the description below, I'm going to put the link to the Ubuntu wiki about cron, so you can go through and read all this information for yourself, and maybe if this is something you want to play with, you can bookmark it. So look for that in the description to the video below. I will talk to you again soon. Thank you for watching, gang.